we hack the code and flip the tag. Where cliches come to retire. Drop that beat, turn down to fire. Say what's real, make fears take a seat. Unconventional wisdom, dancing on your feet. Hey.
Hello, and welcome to Unconventional Wisdom about conventional wisdom. I am here with my guest today and friend, Shokouh. He is the owner and founder of OffTech. They are a managed services firm, IT. And Arash, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your company?
Sure. Thanks, Kim. I appreciate the invitation to be a part of this podcast. My name is Arash Shokouh. As Kim mentioned, I'm the founder and managing principal of OffTech. OffTech provides IT managed services and support for small businesses all up and down the West Coast. So everything from day-to-day support when staff run into error messages to project services when you're ready for new laptops, new servers, and we also do virtual CIO to make sure that your business is following industry best practices around compliance requirements, government requirements, and regulations, and things like that. So that's OffTech in a nutshell.
Good, yeah. And then you also, because I've heard you talk a lot about cybersecurity, that's another really big part of your business, correct?
Oh, yeah. Our focus is around security because that really is a priority for most businesses today. So everything that we do has compliance in mind, which involves cybersecurity enforcement, cybersecurity policy enforcement, and everything that kind of goes with it. So yeah, cybersecurity is very big in what we do.
Yeah, you mean like I shouldn't open the email that I got this morning that said, here are your real estate closing documents and all the rest of the things except that coming from Mass Mutual, except that I haven't bought any property.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. If you didn't expect it, it probably shouldn't be in your inbox in the first place, and definitely question it.
Yeah,
And so we always follow a zero trust policy, always verify everything that
yeah.
comes in that you find suspicious.
Yeah, although I will tell you, this happened probably earlier this year, but this was really the first time I had seen this. So I got an RFP, request for proposal, from somebody who I know, but it also seemed a little off, right? Like, why would she be sending this to me out of the blue, right? I messaged her back, or I think I didn't even message her back. I think I forwarded. I put her email address in and forwarded it to her. And I said, hey, is this you? And I got a message back saying, yes, it is me. And then I was like, but is it really you? And I ended up calling her and it was not. So, however, they have this program, it's co opted it enough that it actually like replies. It took that email and she never saw the email.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
It's gotten very complex
Yeah.
with how malicious actors are taking over people's emails. And the term for it is business email compromise, BEC, business email compromise. And the whole idea is to take over someone's account and fly under the radar long enough to see who they correspond with the most so that that person is the most likely person to take some action if they were to ask them. So if you've got a
Right.
close relationship, they're a vendor, a client, a family member, a friend, and you correspond a lot, they're going to know that and they're going to ask you to do something, just like in this case. And just along with zero trust, you always question when somebody's asking you to take some action, if it seems suspicious. But there are steps that you can take technically that would help reduce that risk as well. And that's something that we encourage a lot with our clients. But anyways, yeah, it's become very difficult to detect this sort of stuff. They've become very smart, and especially with AI tools out there, allowing them to come up with language and vocabulary that isn't so easy to detect anymore.
Right.
It's even harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why people need you,
Yeah.
right? Because you're always one step ahead, which is great.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to jump into your random question. So I figured since you're an IT guy, which does actually not mean that you like love gadgets, right? That's not necessarily the same thing, except that I love gadgets. So if you had to delete all but three apps on your phone, what are you keeping?
Sure. Okay, so I'm gonna split this question up if you don't mind. I'm gonna answer it as business Arash, and I'm gonna answer it as just personal, individual, non-business Arash.
Okay.
So the business Arash would keep Google Chrome on the phone because I can do everything that I can do in front of my computer if I have Google Chrome.
Right.
All the tools that we access, all that stuff, right? I would keep my email because that's kind of my running to-do list. That has to-do items coming in from clients, questions from staff, leads, whatever there might be, right? So Google Chrome and Microsoft Outlook. And then the third application I would have on my phone would be, I was going to say OpenVPN, but I guess it wouldn't really apply here since I mostly work from home. I would say the other piece of this would be Dropbox because I have my to-do list that I keep in a Dropbox account that synchronizes across all the workstations. I work from my laptop, my phone, my tablet, all that stuff. So business Arash has that answer. Personal Arash would say Instagram because that's how I find all my favorite recipes that I experiment with when cooking from home or trying to do like a healthy twist on. So I keep Instagram on there. I would keep my iMessage app. I have an iOS, and so I would keep iMessage so I can communicate with family, with friends, coordinate plans, give directions, who I'm meeting. Most of my communication is done through there and through Instagram. And then the third piece for personal Arash would be, oh my goodness, this is gonna be a tough one. But I'm trying to think of, oh, I thought about this. Spotify, because my ADHD brain needs some sort of rhythm in the background to
Okay.
focus.
Uh-huh.
And without Spotify, whether it's like a slow progressive playlist or a deep house playlist
Mhm.
or a music concentration, or sometimes I'll put on like Celtic music from the early 1900s, which is super relaxing if you haven't listened to it. But that keeps me hyper focused.
Okay.
That's how I'm going to split it up because it's hard to fit three things into business and personal. But anyway, so there we go.
Yeah, you really opened my mind. First of all, if I'm going to put something on like for background, it's going to be like smooth jazz. That's my calming music. And I'm going to have to look up the Celtic music. That sounds a little chaotic to me, but I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
I know
Yeah.
what you mean. If you look up Celtic, like tavern music that they would play in an old tavern in the Middle Ages type of thing, it's actually pretty relaxing. It's definitely
Okay.
not as slow or drawn out like jazz is. Jazz is very beautiful, but it definitely has a soothing, you're sitting by a fireplace feel to it that kind of puts you at ease. Or at least that's what it does for me.
Ah,
Yeah.
although you know what I will tell you, my daughter, it's on YouTube TV. So if you have a either a monitor or like a smart TV that's connected, she found all of these like scenes that you can just play right for the background. And we have a Bose sound bar. So if you put up and it's got like a fire, like you can hear the crackly like logs and so forth. I'm very into this.
Yeah, I agree with you. Whenever we have guests over for a dinner party or something like that, we'll put on something like that where it's like a 4K walking tour of Venice or
Ah,
Tokyo or something. Or it could be like one of those overhead drone shots that just plays for hours and then you play your own music in the background. And it's just a nice background ambiance
yeah,
to listen to or to look at once in a
yeah,
while. But I completely agree with you. That's definitely a nice way
yeah.
uh, to relax the group.
And what you said made me think too about what would I choose? I'm with you about Instagram because I also get all my recipes. Even what's funny is I subscribe to a number of, I guess, like America's Text Kitchen and New York Times Cooking and Bon Appetit and so forth. But interestingly enough, because I follow them on Instagram, I still get my ideas and recipes from Instagram and then I'll go into the app and find the recipe, but I'm with you on Instagram and cooking. It's
Yeah.
a good venue.
One thing I'll share with you, because I think you have an iPhone, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The new iOS 26 update, which I'm not sure when it's releasing, but apparently soon, has a feature where when you're in Instagram and you find a recipe that you really like and it's got all the
Mhm.
directions in the caption of the post in it, you can send the post to the iOS Notes app and then tell it, I want you to convert this into a readable recipe. And so instead of bookmarking everything in Instagram, and now you've got this kind of
Right.
bookmark category in your Instagram of all these recipes that maybe you get to it, maybe you don't, it's more centralized in the Notes app and it's a lot easier to read. In my experience, when I go into Instagram, I have to go into my profile, I have to go into my saved category and then
Right.
find the subcategory of recipes, scroll all the way down and find it it's tedious. And the problem with the app is as soon as you close the app, it exits you back to the very beginning. And you're like, okay, I need to read that recipe. Now I have to go press all these buttons again. But with the Notes app, it's all one place. It's searchable. And I've never been excited about a new phone software update coming out, but this is definitely something that affects me directly. And I'm like, this is great. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm very much looking forward to
Yeah.
it. Sometimes, in order to get around exactly what you're talking about, I will literally take photos of the recipe and then I might have three photos in order. Yeah. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard finding like a centralized system that works, right?
Yeah.
Because then you've got recipes all over the place, and that's how it
Yeah.
is for me.
Yes.
Bookmarks and Instagram and notes and
Yeah.
pictures, and it's like, where did I leave that recipe, and
Yeah.
what ingredients do I need for it?
That's right. And where the
Yeah,
heck did it even come from?
yeah.
Yeah.
More importantly,
Yeah. All right. Okay. That was good. Although you did make me also, just one last word, think about if you had Chrome, like you could actually access a lot of things through the browser, right? Things that we use as apps. Here's the other one. I will tell you, I couldn't live without Wordle and connections like my New York Times games that I play every morning. But I actually do. I don't use the app for that. I actually do use my browser. But
yeah.
I can't live without Wordle in the morning.
Is Wordle like Scrabble?
It's always a five-letter word, and you have six chances to guess the five-letter word. So basically, what happens is you put a beginning word in, and then it will tell you if it's gray, those letters are not in the word. If it's yellow, it's in the word, but it's in the wrong place. And then if it's green, it's in the correct order. You
Okay,
just have six chances to guess what the word is.
I gotcha. Okay, honestly, those sort of really simple kind of pick up and where you left off games and you can play with other friends and family members, those are great. Keeps you busy. It's a time filler when you're just sitting around waiting for stuff, and it helps keep you engaged with your friends and family.
Yeah, and it's good. Not that we need, listen, our businesses are complex enough, but it's also, I think, good brain. It's not scrolling, right? Like you
Yeah,
have to actually use your brain in
yeah,
order to figure it out, which is, I think, helpful.
yeah, yeah, I agree.
All right, let's get into the questions. What's one piece of conventional business wisdom that you followed early on, only to find out that it really was not right for you?
I would have to say creating the business plan. For me,
Ooh.
it was a tremendous waste of time. Yeah, it forces you to sit down, organize your thoughts, put it down on paper, and maybe that's the catalyst that someone needs to really get the ball rolling. But early on in off-tech's life cycle, it it was changing so fast that I just didn't have time to sit there and keep updating a document, a business plan for who? Who's going to read this? I'm not looking for investors necessarily. We have started businesses before where we needed a business plan. We presented to investors to try to raise some seed capital. But in this case, it wasn't necessary. It was more important to get out there and start talking to people, get your business name out there, your services out there so that they know that you exist and there's a chance that you're going to get some leads and you're going to get some new business out of it, right? So I would say creating the business plan was a huge waste of time. Again, if you're looking to raise money, your business plan becomes your investor deck that you're going to present, right? But if you're a small business owner and you're starting something off, you don't need investors. Just skip it and just start working. Your business is going to change so much over the next year, 3 years, 5 years that you just got to be flexible, right? So that's what I would say is the business plan.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is that I often call that getting ready to get ready, right? And I would agree with you 100%, which I've said on this podcast before. If you can't sell your services to anybody, if nobody's going to buy it, then the business plan is lovely, but it's not executable. But here's, I think, the other thing that when you go out and you start talking to people about your business, you finally find the right words to use, right? Like you can write pitches or what you think you're going to say about your business or your service till the cows come home. But until you go out there and start talking to people, you don't know what resonates with them. You don't really have your, what is it called? Like when you, not your pitch, but just
The
like,
elevator pitch?
yeah, or just you don't have your kind of little concise way of just talking to people about your business. I actually think it's much easier when you're talking about your business to talk in paragraphs, right? To describe everything you do. I think it's much harder to be able to be super concise. And you can tell me what you think about this, but I think that probably the most important thing is learning how to ask better questions.
Yeah, yeah. And just to give some tangible steps of how you can do this, especially early on, because you're still trying to figure out what is your service, how do you present it to people, and how do they use it? Why should they pay you for it? It's really important to get out there. Like you said, start talking to people, meeting with people. And when you're starting off, one of the best things to do is to join like the Chamber of Commerce. They have they have networking groups that you can be a part of. It's not going to be the biggest, most robust networking groups, but this is where you're going to hone that message and you're going to practice it over and over again. These are my services. This is who I am. This is my background. This is our unique selling proposition. Quick, concise, couple sentences, because you're going to screw up. You're going to screw up a lot. And you want to screw up in these smaller networking groups and these smaller organizations that it's not really that big of a deal if you screw up. Hone your craft, hone your message, and then move up into the larger organizations, right? Into the larger groups, the larger chambers of commerce. Like, for example, for me, when I started off, it was just me by myself before we even got our first employee. And I was a member of the Silicon Valley Chamber of Commerce, which used to be the San Jose Chamber of Commerce. And they had networking groups. And I joined the networking group that was really close to where I lived at the time, just down the street. But it was a group of maybe 6 people, 7 people that showed up every week. There was barely anybody in it compared to what we're used to. But every week I was presenting what we do and talking about it. And it was terrible for the first 6 months. And I think maybe after 1 year, I got one account from that group. But it allowed me to put myself out there and get comfortable with that. And specifically, my background is engineering. So I'm sitting behind a computer and I'm coding, and I really have to go out of my way to have more interactions with people. Like, for example, when I was working at IBM, I worked at IBM for about 5 years before I started at Offtech. I was an engineer there designing microprocessors that went into these supercomputers and data centers and things like that. But I got so bored sitting behind a computer screen that I would have to go and volunteer for the communications department or in research so that I could start interacting with other humans that worked in the company and feel like I'm a part of something instead of just part of a computer screen. Same thing with business. You got to put yourself out there. You got to come out of your comfort zone, especially if you come from a technical background. And that's when things start to happen. It's going to be slow, but don't think of it as I'm out there trying to get business. Think of it as this is my crash course in my real world MBA on learning how to sell. And that's one of the best things you can do is to join a chamber of commerce, a networking group, and just start talking. It's going to be really uncomfortable, but it takes time.
All right. So talk to us a minute about deciding to start your own business. Was that a hard thing for you to do? Were you worried about leaving the security of a paycheck?
My training, my education was computer engineering. So I did my bachelor's and master's in computer engineering because ever since I was a kid, I loved tinkering with computers, taking them apart, breaking them, figuring out what's wrong. And I just figured computer engineering, it's got computers in the title and it's got engineering, so you can learn about how it all works. And it was wonderful. I had a blast because it's hands-on work. You're playing with microchips and you're building a computer from the very building blocks, transistors and logic gates that make modern computers today. It was wonderful. While I was going to school, I also tried starting some other small businesses just on the side. Maybe it goes somewhere with friends. For example, one small business that we started was an iPhone app, developing a business where we were designing games for the first iPhone that was released when they opened up the App Store for users. And then got together with another friend trying to build a streamlined way to have pharmacy students apply for pharmacy school because up until that point it was all through fax machines and faxes to submit applications. And I never really put my full-time effort into any of these initiatives, right? I think maybe my entire life there was about 5 businesses that I tried to start. So after I got my master's, I decided, okay, let's go to corporate and see what this is like. Went and worked at IBM. And like I said, I was trying to find opportunities to interact with other people in other departments because being an engineer, as much as I enjoyed it, it was very introverted, very you're on your own doing things, right? You didn't interact with a lot of people. So I would go and volunteer with the communications department and the research department on projects that they were doing. And I was really active in my division, where at one point towards the end of my 5 years that I was there, I applied for the corporate service corps, where they send you to another country that has infrastructure issues in another part of the world, and
Wow.
you help them build plumbing or computer
Okay.
labs or bringing electricity to the village, for example.
Mhm.
Got accepted into the program. There was only 14 people out of the entire company, out of 50,000 people. Out of 14, I was one of 14 that got accepted. And then about 2 weeks later, our manager's manager called a meeting, had all 15, 16 engineers in a conference room with our manager, and announced to us that we're going to be eliminating this whole division. And so I felt like after putting all this blood, sweat, and tears into the company, all these extracurriculars, getting accepted into the corporate service corps, I felt like I was doing a really good job at my job. I had a really good relationship with my manager and my other coworkers, and then the rug gets pulled out from under you, right? I spent months searching for a new job, got interviews at AMD and Intel and all these other tech companies to do what I was doing at IBM, but I couldn't convince myself to go and put another 5 years in, only to have it all taken away if
Mhm.
budgets aren't doing well or the company made some bad financial decisions. So having started 4 or 5 companies before this, I decided, okay, let's try this one more time, but this time go full force, full time. And I started off tech. At the time, it was called At Home PC Care. Absolutely ridiculously long name, but off tech got started. And in the beginning, you don't have any revenue. And thankfully, my spouse, my wife, was working at the time, so she helped financially support us. And after those few months, IBM actually reached back out to me and said, "Hey, would you be interested in coming back for a contractor position?" And I really could have used the financial support at the time. So I said, "Okay, fine, I'll come back, but can we do this part-time? Just first 4 hours in the morning, and then the afternoons I have to myself," which I was using to grow the business. And so in the mornings, I would work at IBM as a contractor in the research division. And then in the afternoons, I would go to Chamber of Commerce meetings, networking meetings to try to promote off tech. And gradually, I started to get clients from these networking meetings, I should say. And it got to a point where the money from off tech matched the money I was making from IBM. And I decided, okay, now's the time to go and do this full time. So, your question of whether or not I was nervous leaving, absolutely, but I felt like I'm just as much at risk staying in corporate. But at
Sure.
least when you have your own business, you're not answering to one boss and people aren't cutting your whole division because of bad budgets, and it's all in your hands. The amount of effort and energy you put into it directly corresponds to what you get out of it. When you spend a lot of time
Mhm.
going to meetings and meeting people, you're going to get new business, you're going to get new revenue. So that's how it was for me. And I'm sure it was scary for you too when you were starting with your business. No clients, or maybe one client, and you need to do other things to support yourself. But yeah, that's how I got into it. And it wasn't as scary because I had done this 5 times before. Now it was just doing it full time.
Okay. Okay, so and how many people do you now have at Off Tech?
We have 8 people working at Off Tech, and they're all W2 US based. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So clearly you've made a success of this business and you are the face of the business. What do you still struggle with underneath?
So I would say staying organized is still a bit of a challenge for me,
Mhm.
because you get notifications from every direction, from different tools, from clients, from staff. And how do you juggle all this, right? How do you centralize your to-do list? You can start with a notepad, got to do this today, got to do that today. You can start with your inbox, you can use your calendar, but I really struggle with all of the available tools out there. So in IT, you're just as good as your tool stack is. The security software you provide to your clients, the ticketing system that you use to manage issues that your clients submit. How do you enforce updates? How do you monitor for hardware problems? This is your tool set. And you've got to tweak the tool set to do what you want it to do. But that tool set is also going to talk to you constantly. So how do you
Mm.
organize all those notifications coming from every which way? So I still struggle with this because even our existing vendors, the tools that we use now, the vendors that provide those tools, they're constantly coming out with new features, and we have to keep up with these changes. So here we are trying to work with clients and do projects and bring on new clients and onboard and deal with issues. And then the vendor changes something, a vendor that we've been using for a decade, and we've got to now adjust our processes internally to deal with that, and then all the kind of notifications that come along with it. So I would say staying organized, and it's something that kind of comes with the territory. Everybody wants to be the latest and greatest. Everybody's incorporating AI into their software, and oh, we can help save you time and help save you money. Come join this presentation and learn more about it. And it's who has time for that? But that's the hard part for me. I've figured out a system, zero inbox. I'm sure you've heard of this. Zero inbox. You try to keep your email inbox as close to zero emails as possible. And what you do is you delete, you defer, you delegate, or you do, right? There should not be emails in your inbox unless there's some pending action, one of those four things: defer, delete, delegate, and do. Or you like file the email away in its appropriate folder. And this also helps you mentally. The clutter in your mind is reduced as much as possible. So that's one thing that I use to stay organized is the zero inbox policy. I would recommend this for anybody is try to stay as close to zero as possible and your life will just feel more at peace. I feel like I could sleep better at night knowing that there's only one email in my inbox.
Okay.
Yeah.
Love that. All right. So if you could rewrite the rule book on leadership, what's one outdated belief you'd throw out immediately and what would you replace it with?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of emphasis put on delegation. Do a process, hand it over to somebody else, and let them take over so that you're not spending too much time on it. You're working on your business rather than in your business. Delegation is great. That's how you scale, right? But I'm a very strong believer in leading from the front. When you've got a team that's working on a project, you've got a team that's onboarding a new client, you really should be involved in some capacity to help give direction, to be the conductor of the orchestra so that your team has a clear path of how to move forward. Eventually, the team members will get to a point where they're comfortable and they can do it themselves. But I think it's extremely important to lead from the front as opposed to relying too much on delegation. And maybe that's just what works for me because my mind is always running at a million miles an hour. And I actually enjoy having my fingers in everything and just being aware of what's going on in different parts of the business. And that extends itself to leading from the front. So that's what I would say is a pretty important habit to have as a business owner, as a business leader.
So just expression lead from the front is a little confusing to me. Explain a little bit more what that actual like term means.
Sure. So our first big client that we got about 4 years ago in the peninsula, most of our clients up until that point were maybe 20 people, maybe 30 people. This was the first client that was like 150 people in multiple locations in different parts of the state. It was massive, but they really wanted to work with us, and it was a very good fit for them as well, for us as well, the systems
Mhm.
that they were using and the support and the services that they needed. But I didn't want to just throw this to my team and be like, all right, everybody, get them onboarded. We already had our processes and procedures. Everything was documented. So all you have to do is follow these step by
Right.
step, and then things happen. But I didn't want to leave it to chance that one of my team members feel overwhelmed because we have this big new account coming in. So I took the lead on the onboarding. And I didn't do all the tasks myself, but I just made sure
Mhm.
that things are moving forward, kind of like a project manager.
Okay.
So here's our 50 tasks. I'm going to assign tasks 1 through 10 to this team member and so on. And then every day I'm checking in. Do you need help? What resources are lacking? Is there somebody you can't get a hold of? Just making sure things are moving forward. So that's what I mean by leading from the front
Got it.
is be involved. Obviously, don't be doing all the kind of nitty gritty. That stuff should be delegated, but the big
Mhm.
picture, the making sure that project, that effort is moving forward, that's how I think of leading from the front.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Thank you for clarifying that.
Give me an example of what you think is leading from the front, because I know that you speak with a lot of business owners, so I'm sure you have examples of this.
If I thought of leading from the front, I would think that meant setting a very clear vision and continually updating the vision, right? And the direction. But I wouldn't think of it as having anything to do necessarily with delegation or with having being involved. And that's why I just wanted you to clarify because I think it's a really interesting concept. So I would agree with you. I think when you are scaling like that, and this is the first time that you're doing something that's 10x, 20, whatever, 100x, like what you've done, it makes perfect sense, right? Like, why would you leave that to chance because also it's a big opportunity. And my husband's favorite expression is how it starts is how it goes. And it can be on the good side as well as on the negative side. So I think it makes sense to put the effort in to make sure that it goes well. And like you said, that you're training your team to be able to do it in the future, right? Because if you're doing that for every client or for every big client, then you never get a chance to work on your business. Then you're always in your business. And then it gets in the way of your ability to scale.
Yeah, yeah, that's a very good point. And I think that being a little bit involved in each aspect of the business, pioneering opportunities to get involved, new process, new client type, very complex. You don't want to leave it to chance. You want them to be happy with everything, that they're being taken care of. So that's when you be involved. Once that's been taken care of, you've gone through a client that's that type, then you can hand it off to somebody else next time because you're like, you know what to expect. It's interesting as you grow and as you take on bigger accounts, at least for us, it's almost as if every client has something unique to them, but it's because you're taking on these bigger and bigger accounts that you've never done before, as opposed to status quo. Status quo is nice. We get those too, but you'll get something out of left field one time, and not in a bad way, but and wow, this is interesting. Okay, let's learn about this together. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think those are really interesting things. So, what's one unconventional habit or mindset shift that's helped you grow your business?
Okay, so I'll tell you mine, and then I want you to share with me what you think is the best unconventional habit to help grow a business. Okay. So I know that this isn't unconventional, but it's going to lead into something. I'm a really big believer in persistence because luck is where persistence meets opportunity. You keep
Okay.
doing the same thing over and over, you make adjustments along the way. Somebody comes and sees what you're doing, and it just happens to be the right time for them. And all right, let's talk. What do you have for me? What are your services? What are the prices? And when I say persistence, at least as it pertains to us, and I'm sure this is going to be common for other business owners as well, are you sending that newsletter on a regular basis, monthly, weekly, every 2 weeks, whatever it might be? Are you checking in with your leads on a regular basis? Hey, I just saw this article. I was thinking about you. Here's the link to it. Hey, by the way, we're still providing services. Let me know if you need anything. I'm here to be a resource. Are you attending networking meetings on a regular basis where you're able to practice your pitch, practice describing your services, meeting new people? Are you posting to your blog regularly so that people that are interested in you, they look at your website and they say, oh, it's active. They're constantly posting. This is
Hmm.
great. They're not just here today, gone tomorrow. Are you posting to social media regularly? Same thing. People want to see, leads want to see, are you actually proactive and alive and doing stuff as opposed to you started this business 10 years ago and now you're just coasting. So the persistence I think is so crucial in anything. And one book that I would recommend is a book called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. Have you heard of this book, Kim?
Yeah. Would you like me to here? Wait a second. I'm going off camera just for a minute.
You got the book there, don't you? I knew it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, it is like my top three books. And I recommend this not just to other business owners. I recommend this to friends that want to
Hmm.
make a change in their life, a positive
Yeah.
change. 60 days on average is what it takes for the brain to learn a new habit. And after 60 days, your brain stops wasting calories on this process. And instead, it becomes a recording and you just do it, whether it's going to the gym regularly or eating healthy regularly. So persistence leads to the unconventional habit that I think is not necessarily right is that the customer is always right. The customer is always right, but they're always right for what they need. They're not necessarily right for what you provide and whether or not they're a good fit for your business. So
Right.
one thing that really helped take us to the next level is learning how to say no to clients that just weren't a good fit. We've got a certain culture at OffTech where we really value work-life balance. Family, friends come first, and then there's work. You work to live. You're not living to work. So if you need to take time off to be with family, do something personal, doctor's appointment, whatever it is, please go. Don't even think twice about work. The work is going to be here when you get back. But family time is not negotiable. That's limited. So if we have a client that needs round the clock, 24/7, constant attention, and their systems are complex and they're working Sundays at 6 a.m. or Saturdays at 2 a.m., it's not a good fit for our company culture.
Hmm.
It's okay to say no because what's going
Hmm.
to happen is with that persistence, you're going to get more leads, you're going to get more potential clients, and you're going to get to choose the ones that better fit the services you provide, your company culture. And that also extends into another book that I would highly recommend. It's called Built to Sell. Does that sound
Yeah,
familiar
no,
at all?
I don't have that on my shelf.
Okay, okay. Built to Sell by John Warrillow. And it's not necessarily read it to prepare your business to sell. Obviously, everybody wants to have an exit with their business and sell it someday, but it teaches you that you don't want to be a jack of all trades in your business. You spread yourself too thin. You become a master of none.
Yeah.
And so, by extension, especially in IT and technology, when you're not very good at anything, things start to fall through the cracks. And that's when breaches happen. That's when account takeovers, business email compromise happens. Do one thing and do it really well. And what you're going to find is, at least for us, this is how it worked. Over time, we realized, wow, what we're providing is really top tier. It is high quality. And a lot of the clients that we took on, we had a chance to see some of the other services that they were using up until they switched over to us. And we were thinking, we couldn't believe that they got as far as they did without some major event, some major breach happening.
Mm,
And that's when we realized it took years to get to this level of persistence and just providing support and services. It took years to get to a point where we had the confidence to say, wow, we provide top tier stuff and we can charge for it. And we can be very picky about the clients that we take on. They've got to be a good fit for us. So to
mhm.
answer your question, I would say yes, the customer is always right, but they're always right for themselves. And it's very important to be comfortable saying no once you get to that point. Obviously, in the beginning, you're growing, you need clients, you need revenue. So you got to take what you got to take. But once you're at a point where you're like, all right, I feel confident in what I do, what the business provides, saying no is so okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I would say it's interesting. One of the things that it makes me think about, like for myself, is that early on, and my business is 15 years old, and early on, I started writing a book. And it was less about thought leadership and more about everybody says you need a book, right? At the time, I don't think I had worked with enough clients and I hadn't been doing what I was doing long enough to be the kind of expert that you are talking about, to really hone in on what am I about. And I actually started to write a book about time management, which is interesting because I have incorporated a lot of that into what I currently do. But I think at the time, I hadn't implemented it enough with enough clients to really feel like I owned the thought leadership. You read a lot and so forth, and it was just, again, not really clear. I think for me now, 15 years in, I think what I stand for, who I work with, and how I help people with time management and with leadership and management and just success, right? Succeeding and in your business in general, growing a business, it's so clear. And now I have a book coming out and it is all me, right? Because I've just worked with hundreds of people at this point, like it's clear. But I would agree also with the idea of having the confidence to say no is a really hard thing to do. There's also an opportunity cost to there's two things. There's an opportunity cost of saying yes to the wrong business because it takes you so much longer to execute on it. And then I think for you, I would say for me too, right? Like when you have employees and you take on the wrong business, you really damage your culture and their satisfaction with working for you. And in some ways, I think you damage your own reputation as a leader. Because also, too, you're really incongruent because you're saying one thing, but then you're asking them to execute on something that's different. And that leads to mistrust. Even if they can't articulate it, it is 100% true.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I agree with you. And honestly, that fit, it's so important. Like you said, you don't want your team to burn out or feel unappreciated because a client that you took on who pays well, but is just very difficult to work with for whatever reason, just doesn't appreciate the service you provide, is condescending, has a greater than thou personality, which can be toxic at times. You don't want to expose your team to that for the sake of a little bit of revenue, but it takes time. It takes a
Yeah.
long time to get to that point where you're like, I can comfortably say no.
Right.
In the beginning, you've got to take what you can get. And
Right.
that's,
You know
you
what
know,
I call that? I call that the gift that keeps on giving.
yeah.
You only need to do that a couple of times or maybe one time to be like, yeah, never going to do that again.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. And here's another way to think about it. Think of this is the school of hard knocks. You're going to have to take those bad clients and you're gonna have to learn those hard lessons because it's not a textbook, it's not a blog, it's not a YouTube video, it's not on an Instagram motivational post. You just have to learn these things the hard way. It could so that you'll never make those same mistakes again. We took on not so many. We took on a good enough number of clients where we were like, wow, never again. We have changed processes because of them. We collect payments for materials in advance because of some experiences we had. And you just trust your gut. When your gut
Yeah.
tells you this person is going to make you miserable, is going to run you ragged, you got to trust that.
Right.
But that
Right.
building that intuition takes time, right?
Absolutely. And then, you know what is funny is that I agree that there's always lessons to be learned, right? If you sit there, you said you've changed some processes, you've learned who a good client is. But here is some wisdom for you and for everybody who's listening. It is also possible to learn lessons from good clients. We don't always have to learn all of our lessons from bad experiences.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Because the good clients are the example of what you want to bring on in the future. I'll give you an example. We have a client that is so pleasant to work with. Whenever our technicians go on site, everybody's so friendly, says hi to them. There's usually food in the break room. They're always like, please come. Somebody brought chicken pot pie and donuts. Take whatever you want. We're having like a casual Friday. Some people brought some food. Or I'll get a phone call from them and they'll say, I just want to tell you that I've never worked with an IT service provider that has been as professional as your team, that ha
Wow.
has been quick to respond. The positive feedback is also very underrated because that's who you want, right? If you get the sense that this is going to be a client that they're going to appreciate what you do, you want that positive energy in your life, right? You
Absolutely.
want your team to experience that positive energy. I totally agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. One last question. It's a two-parter.
Okay,
So clearly, you have a successful business. You've been doing it for a while now. If you're going to have imposter syndrome, that lack of confidence, what is, or even like self doubt, what's the place where it's going to come up for you? And how do you get yourself moving forward again?
sure. So I'll answer this question with kind of my own experience early on in the business, getting everything started when I was on my own. So we brought in some clients over the years, and it was just me, and maybe I had one other team member with me as well at the time. And they had a server in the office, and the server just completely went down. It just stopped being responsive. It was the first time I had ever experienced anything like this. And up until that happened, something was nagging at me in the back of my mind. What if something horrible happens? What if that server goes down? What are you going to do? That whole office is going to come to a halt. There's 16 people working there. There's 14 computers, and all of that's going to stop working. And then finally, one day it happened. And since it was just me and my other team member, I was doing a lot of the tactical stuff working in the business. So I went on site to this client's office, sat at the computer, and just started chipping away. Got on the phone with vendor support, tried a whole bunch of different things. And after about an hour and a half, we finally figured out what the problem was. It was a quick fix. It completely fixed the server. Everything was back up and running, normal as usual. But that imposter syndrome for me had been building up to that point, and then it finally happened. And it had to happen for me to go through it and realize, you know what, it's not going to be so bad. That you just have to go through it. You have to go through that gauntlet a handful of times because it's going to teach you, at least for us in IT, here's the tools I should have had in place to prevent
Mm,
this from happening. Here are the things I should have been looking for up to this point to tell me that this is potentially going to happen. You battle imposter syndrome by just going through it. The only way through it is through it in this case. You're gonna have to fake it for a while, and then you're gonna hit that point where things are gonna hit the fan, and you've got to do something. And you work through the problem, you come up with new processes, and that's where that confidence comes from too. Where down the line, you're like, the services we provide are pretty top notch because we've gone through all this craziness, and we've actually had to deal with down servers and offices being completely unusable, the computers being unusable, but we've been through it so much that we know exactly how to handle it. So that's what I would say is imposter syndrome is completely normal. It's expected. If you don't have it, then I'd be concerned. I'd be like, okay, so you've done this before, obviously. It's totally normal to have it. And the way you get through it is you're just gonna have to go through that gauntlet and
mm.
learn what you need to do to prevent it in the future, the questions to ask, the tools to put in place, the referral partners to have ready at a moment's notice that you can pass them on to your clients and say, this person is going to fix this problem. That's what I would say about imposter syndrome, because it's a very real thing and it's totally normal and you just got to go through it. And you're going to get to a
Right.
point where you're like, hey, everything's going to be okay.
Right. Actually, as opposed to being afraid or panicking when you're in it, it is really just, yeah, stuff happens. Like we just can't control everything. And it's also reminding yourself that even if you haven't been in this particular situation before, you've certainly been in situations and you have gotten over to the other side. That's great advice. Gosh, we have done it. We have produced a podcast and a great conversation. Thank you so much for sharing so much of your journey and your wisdom. And you clearly think about these things. And I think it's super helpful for me and for the listener to hear your story. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kim. I appreciate you having me on the podcast. And really, your audience is very lucky to have somebody with so many years of experience working with business leaders, having that time spent with them face to face so that you can share that knowledge with everyone. That really is something precious that you're giving back to the community. So thank you for allowing me to be on this
Yeah.
and a part of what you're doing.
Thank you. You heard Arash say this before about persistence. So, audience, we need you to share, to engage, comment, download, all the things you need to do. So, on that note, go out there and be a better human.
Where cliches come to retire. Drop that beat, turn down to fire. Say what's real, make fears take a seat. Unconventional wisdom, dancing on your feet. Hey!